backup for Sixers star Joel Embiid. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@kbla1580.com. That's advertising at kbla1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black.
It's up to you what you're listening to. You can listen to the news, listen to the rhythm of the blues if you want to. Listen to me. You should listen in church. You should listen to the people at your heard instead of listening to somebody telling you what it's worth. Yeah. If you're listening, y'all, or listening all. If you're listening hard, or listening soft, listen to God. Listen to God. Listen for God.
KBLA Talk 1580. Yeah. Terrace Martin. Feeling that this morning because there's a lot of noise going on right now in America. And mind who you listen to. I'm really excited to welcome in someone I've never had a chance to be in conversation with before. He's been an activist since he was a teenager, graduated from college, went to work as a welder in a shipyard, and that's how he became part of the labor movement. He's been active in the workplace and community struggles, electoral campaigns. He's worked for several unions, including being a senior staff person in the National AFL-CIO, former president of TransAfrica Forum, a senior scholar with the Institute for Policy Studies. And he is an author, a syndicated columnist, and a regular media commentator on TV, radio, and the internets. Bill Fletcher Jr., welcome.
I am so pleased to be on board, so thank you. I'm honored to be invited.
Yeah, great to be in conversation with you. I was looking at this article that you wrote some time ago now about the challenges that Biden has because of his stance in Gaza and his foreign policy. It's actually something I've been talking about for a long time because I see it. I've seen it in my, in my friend group, in the young people that I'm around, and of course you wrote this in 2023. Here we are, more than 6 months later, and it seems like you could have written this yesterday.
Indeed. I think that President Biden made a terrible mistake in his entire approach, the approach of his administration towards the Gaza war. And part of that begins with that ideologically Biden is a Zionist. That is, that he believes very much in the whole purpose of the construction of Israel back in the 1940s, accepts the way that it was done, and believes that the United States has an obligation to defend Israel. And so he has a blind spot to the Palestinian cause, to the arguments the Palestinians have been making repeatedly ever since the time of British colonialism about their own rights to national sovereignty. So that's part of the problem. But the other part is this, at a narrow political level, his blindness to the impact that his stand towards the Israeli genocide that's being carried out against the Palestinians, and the impact that that's had on many younger people and on many Muslims and Arabs. And so here we are in July, and this is a very close race, and Biden needs younger activists. The only thing that he has going for him right now, I would say, is actually two things. One is actually the accomplishments of the last 4 years domestically, but the other thing is the nature of the threat from Trump and Vance. And I think that's becoming more and more clear for people. But this is not a settled question, and his decisions have been terrible. And not just on Gaza, Dominique. He has continued other foreign policy decisions from the Trump administration,
yep,
and has not always broken with them.
Yeah, I mean, Cuba is a great example. I think
Yes.
the asylum policies at the U.S.-Mexico border is another example of that. The treatment of Haitian, immigrants or would-be asylum seekers. I feel like there's probably a much longer list than that I'm not thinking of right now. But for me, it's like a tale of two presidencies. If you look at domestic policy versus what he's done, in foreign policy, for me, it's like
That's right.
It's cognitive dissonance for me.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that. That's exactly how many people feel. It's like, wait a minute, does Biden have a doppelganger? Is there someone else, right? And it's like, what's going on here? And the thing is that it's not just about Biden. This is something that recurs in U.S. politics, that there's a certain theme that regularly runs throughout U.S. foreign policy that often transcends administrations. And so those administrations might have dramatically different views on domestic issues, but on foreign policy, it's often consistent. Now, with Trump, it was a little bit complicated because Trump upset the apple cart in foreign policy in a number of ways, including his willingness to make alliance with fascists, and like the Putin administration or Orbán in Hungary. His disruption of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict by moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. There was the Abraham Accords, which his administration started, which aimed at strangling the Palestinians. These were all things that Trump did that moved off program. But the problem is that when Trump was gone, instead of Biden coming forward and saying, okay, we're going to repudiate these things, including also his recognition of the Moroccan occupation in Western Sahara, instead of saying, we're going to repudiate this, they started doing a soft shoe.
Yeah. So, I can see what you're saying as far as a through line in American foreign policy, especially when it comes to our American supposed exceptionalism, expansionism and all that. But to me, by continuing the policy towards Cuba, now you're to the right of Obama, who is not exactly a progressive.
That's right. No, absolutely. And it's also odd, and I hope that this gets explored at some point. It's by the fact that Biden said before becoming president that he would continue Obama's direction on Cuba. He implied that he would repudiate Trump's recognition of the Moroccan occupation of Western Sahara, but instead just kept going forward. And one has to ask why. What was motivating this?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, but I want to start with something really simple around this whole, issue, because here you're looking. We started off with Biden's policies on Gaza and how, we seem to be of one accord. I believe he's lost young people. He's lost some older black folks who are more progressive, not to mention Muslims and many Muslims and Arab Americans. Now he's in a weakened position where Democrats are calling for him to step down, or at least they were before the assassination attempt of the weekend, and I expect that to continue. And so people are saying, well, this is a done deal. Biden's lost. I think we need to stop saying that. I don't think it's true. You can't rely on polls that way. But that said, what would you tell progressives, people who are, have a strong and correct analysis of the problems with Biden's foreign policy? And you say in your article, a vote for a third party, I guess unless you're in a safe state, but is a vote for Trump. So
Right.
A lot of folks are going west, Cornell West, Dr. Melina Abdullah right now. What do you say to those progressives?
So let me start with one thing you just said about the election. The election is far, far from settled. I mean, I want to remind people about what the polls were telling us in October and early in the first week of November of 2016. They were telling us that Hillary Clinton was going to be the president.
Yeah.
And we were told with great assurance, I want to remind people, that she was going to be the president. And things did not quite work out that way. And so I think that people need to walk away from this kind of fatalism on a number of levels. One is it remains unclear whether Biden will be the candidate. I continue to think that he should withdraw from the race, and not because he can't win, because, see, the irony here is I actually think he can. But I think that there has been a loss of confidence in him by the core, the people that have to do the real work of moving the campaign. And I think that he should respect that, and that it's not for him, to use his words, to finish the job. It's up to us to finish the job collectively. Now, the thing about third parties is that because we live in a very democratic electoral system, it is very, very difficult for third parties to succeed at the national level. The last successful third party was the Republican Party right before the Civil War. And so there have been other parties that have emerged, the Populist Party in the 1890s, which was successful in state races, particularly in the South and the Midwest, and then dissolved or merged with the Democratic Party. It's very, very hard because of the winner-take-all system. The problem with people voting their conscience is summarized in the following: Project 2025. The idea that we simply vote our conscience because we don't like the options ignores the fact that 40% of the electorate at least is going to vote their conscience, and their conscience says Trump-Vance. So if we have a situation where a significant number of people decide to vote third party or sit this one out, then we are more than likely looking at a Trump-Vance victory. And then, so what I then call upon people to do is to look at Project 2025, which is the Heritage Foundation's proposal put together by all of these Trump former staff people and about 100 different right-wing organizations for a radical reshaping of government, a radical usage of the Insurrection Act, an implementation of everything that Trump has been talking about in terms of getting vengeance on his political opponents. And people have to stop and say, morally, are you cool with that? And I would say the same thing to Cornell. I went to college with Cornell. I've known Cornell since 1972, right? And I respect him. But I don't respect him as a strategist. He is not a strategist. He's not thinking about this as a strategist. He's thinking about this, as is the Green Party, as simply, we're going to state our anger, our frustration with the system. We're going to make a statement. And I get that. So you make the statement, but on Election Day, there's a different statement that needs to be made, unless you think the Project 2025 is completely imaginary.
Talking with Bill Fletcher Jr. If you got a question or comment, you're welcome to join in, 800-920-1580. I want to talk more about that. I also, when we come forward, would like to get your thoughts on how different the U.S. policy regarding Israel and their actions in Gaza and the West Bank would be under the 47th president, should he be Donald J. Trump. KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
Finding a path to a meaningful career, one where you're making an impact and making enough money, it can be tough. There's one path, though, that many young adults are landing on that leads them to careers where they can work outdoors, protect our environment, take on climate change, and get paid while they train. It's the California Conservation Corps. You just have to be 18 through 25 years old to enroll, or a U.S. military veteran through age 29, and you have to be a California resident. That's it. There's no education requirement, no employment history needed. Some Corps members need to finish up high school. Others are college grads. But during their 1 year of service, all CCC Corps members can earn the work experience and certifications needed to become a wildland firefighter, forestry technician, install solar, or build trails in our state parks. Learn how you can enroll at ccc.ca.gov. Do this for you. Become the person you want to be through the California Conservation Corps.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Paid for by government. Did you hear? A secret hoard of 1904 $20 gold Liberty coins have been found. These gorgeous 1904p gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck, and less than 500 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this secret U.S. gold coin discovery a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you can own a piece of the hoard. When you call, you are guaranteed a 1904 gold Liberty struck at the iconic Philadelphia Mint. With limited availability, you must call now. These 1904 dated gold coins are still in uncirculated condition with brilliant luster. That is 120 years of history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-973-3083. Call now and you'll receive a free bonus, a $75 value free with every order. Call 1-800-973-3083 now to secure your 1904p $20 gold Liberty coins before they sell out. That's 1-800-973-3083.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000.
Eric called Optima Tax Relief.
When Optima Tax got involved, the calls would stop, the threats would stop. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Optima Tax Relief took care of Eric's problem.
And now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything.
Call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
It does indeed. We're talking with Bill Fletcher Jr., who's the co-author of Solidarity Divided, The Crisis in Organized Labor, A New Path Towards Social Justice, and the author of They're Bankrupting Us, and 20 Other Myths About Unions. He's a syndicated columnist and a regular media commentator. So, so many things to unpack here. You said, that you've been saying Biden should step aside and honor the people who have to do the work of getting him elected. But to be clear, you've been saying he should step aside long before this became a thing. You say it in this article from December of 2023.
Correct. I didn't think he should run for re-election. And just to remind people, he himself said that he would be a transitional figure and transition to a younger generation. And so I supported him in 2020, thought that was good, and thought that what was really needed, desperately needed, was to have a open debate in Democratic primaries about the candidate going forward. His decision to run, again, I think I take him at his word. And I listened to the press conference, Dominique, and when he said this thing about, I have to finish the job, I take him at that. I believe that that's what he was thinking. And it's precisely because of that he was wrong. This is not a personal decision. Chris Hayes on MSNBC compared it with a pitcher in baseball who is in his ninth inning and has been throwing he's getting tired, throwing all these balls, and is getting tired. And the manager comes out and says, how you doing? And the pitcher says, no, I've got to complete this. And that's essentially what Biden is saying. And the problem is, whether it's in baseball or whether it's in politics, that's not a decision for the individual. That's a decision for the team. The team has to decide, look, we love you, but you're obviously getting tired, and we're going to take you out. Nothing personal. And in politics, it's clear that he is not the same person that he once was, but he's still incredibly sharp, as was evident from the press conference. So we're not dealing with a 25th Amendment thing, but he should not have run for re-election. And I think that after the debate, he just shattered people's confidence.
Yeah.
And again, Dominique, I think that they're a different Republican candidate. And if there was not Project 2025, I think that it would be even in some ways more worrisome because people wouldn't understand what's at stake. And that's why a decision needs to be made very quickly.
And so you still think they could replace him at the top of the Democratic ticket? It seems like such a mess. But we haven't had our convention yet, so I guess anything's possible. Right. A lot of us feel like there's no way that people are really going to vote for a black woman in this kind of a competitive race, which I think Kamala Harris would make a fine president, but I don't see her winning. And you can't really take her off the ticket. They shouldn't take her off the ticket. So,
right. I think that I've been saying to people recently, we are in completely unknown territory.
Yep.
There has not been an election like this since maybe 1876. where so many things are up in the air and up for grabs. We don't know. I mean, the thing about this election and a replacement for Biden is that people are going to have to decide whether it's worth taking the risk with Trump. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You know, for people that are sort of undecided and those people that might want to vote for third party, they basically have to decide, is Trump basically BSing us?
Mm-hmm.
And is he really not serious about what is involved in Project 2025 and all of this political violence that he and other people on the right have been articulating? And unfortunately, I've run across people, intelligent people, who believe that Trump is not very serious about this, that it's all a game, and that nothing will fundamentally change. And I think that is so wrong and so dangerous. But, you know, the other part of this is that I look at it like if Biden steps down, it might be Harris and some white guy. That probably is going to be where it has to be. It's going to be very hard to run a campaign between now and the Democratic convention in terms of the money and things like that. The other possibility, which I think is a very distinct possibility, is that if by the time of the convention this matter is not settled, it's very possible that the convention will have to make decisions.
Wow, like a
and
contested.
At that point, we're out of the blocks. I mean, we're just going to have to leave the convention and, dash.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we only have 30 seconds before news, traffic, and sports. So I'll let you think about this question. We talk about. We said we were going to talk about the global solidarity, and I think Gaza is an example of that, where you see, people, progressives, people on the left, standing, with the Palestinian people. And so I want to talk about that on the world stage, but also how does it factor into what you've just outlined, which is the future of the United States of America, our democracy in progress. We got news, traffic, and sports and more with Bill Fletcher Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is going to be Donald Trump's running mate after getting the vice president nomination. The delegation formally nominated him yesterday on the opening day of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A jubilant band pumped his fist in the air when it became official. In Illinois, Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling is all in on the security plan for next month's Democratic National Convention following the recent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. The African-American top cop added that the police department has been preparing for the DNC since they found out Chicago would be the host city, and they are counting for all incidents that could happen. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit Allstate.com or call for a quote today.
Is this the Tiger? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tiger Woods is still trying to get his groove back. Woods rented out a golf course in Scotland today so he could get in a private practice round of 18 holes. Nobody was on the course but Tiger and his caddy. The 47-year-old Woods is getting ready for the British Open, which tees off Thursday. Tiger failed to make the cut in his last two events, the PGA Championships and the U.S. Open. He has not made the cut in 6 6 of his last 9 tournaments. 3 of Tiger's 15 major titles have come at the British Open. Tiger hasn't won a major title since the Masters in 2019. Former UCLA center Dean Bono signed a 4-year deal for $8 million today with the Philadelphia 76ers. Bono was a second-round pick of the Sixers last month. Bono has been balling with the Sixers rookie team. He's got 14 block shots in the Sixers' first 4 Summer League games. Bono could be a nice backup for Sixers star Joel Embiid. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
If we're the ones disproportionately impacted by these climate catastrophes,
Why should we be silent?
turning up the volume all year long on the climate conversation for KBLA Talk 1580.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
Getting connected has never been easier. Get free Wi-Fi at all LA County library locations, inside the library and outside in the parking lots. Visit your local library and get connected today.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Find a righteous rage, and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
And we do, as usual, have a lot to talk about, speaking with columnist and commentator, author Bill Fletcher Jr. So before news, traffic, and sports, I was asking you about this November election, you know, in the context of international solidarity. We started out speaking about Gaza. You know, what does that look like? I mean, does that mean, you know, okay, or even Ukraine? Like, does that mean a retreat from the position of solidarity in order to save the United States, such as it is?
Well, let me answer that by going to another question that you raised earlier, which is specifically, what would a Trump victory mean in Gaza?
Yeah.
And I think this is a very important question that is being pretty much ignored, including by pro-Palestinians. It's important to remember, as I pointed out earlier, that Trump laid the foundation for the Gaza crisis and the crisis on the West Bank that we're seeing now. He did this by moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. He did this by moving the Abraham Accords. He did this by cutting off aid to the UN relief refugee program, UNRWA. He did a number of things that were provocative. But in addition to this, he had a strong alliance with Netanyahu and was very supportive of all of the steps that Netanyahu was doing. So the conditions for the Gaza war were laid precisely by Donald Trump and his administration. When the war started, Trump's response has been interesting. As a New Yorker, I know exactly what he's talking about. His argument has been the Israelis need to finish the job. Now, as a New Yorker, I know exactly what he means. And he means that the Israelis need to whack the Palestinians. And that's what finish the job means. And that is in line with what other Republicans have been saying, including playing with the idea of the Palestinians being nuked. So a Trump victory would mean further support for Israel's genocide and possibly even accepting very dramatic increases, including but not limited to the reoccupation of Gaza by the Israelis. A Trump victory would certainly mean pressure on the Ukrainians to stop resisting the Russian invasion. Trump has this real love for Putin, as he does for other authoritarian leaders, and that would more or less happen. So that's part of the external environment that we're looking at, Dominique. And so for people that are concerned about Palestinians and the Palestinian question, it is not going to be any easier with a Trump victory. That all indications would be that he'd go forward again with strangling the Palestinians, wrapping up the agreements with Saudi Arabia and others to basically eliminate any real Palestinian question. And so regardless of who wins, on the question of Palestine, we're going to have a fight on our hands. And people should just be prepared for that.
Yeah. And, I laugh because how prepared can we really be? I saw a post. I'm seeing it, seeing if I can find it. I don't see it right now. But Dr. Melina Abdullah, who's the running mate to Dr. Cornel Wesson, who's actually my friend, posted something on Instagram about how Project 2020, basically she's saying, miss me with the Project 2025 fear-mongering. This has been around forever. It's not anything new. And so she is, she's calling on people to vote, as we talked about earlier, vote their conscience and not vote out of fear around Project 2025. I thought that was interesting. I'm starting to hear that more coming from people on the left. Well, Project 2025 isn't anything new.
Oh, no, it is. I mean, it is new. And see, people are really funny because they can take something that has an element of truth and then go in a completely weird direction. I'll tell you what's not new. What's not new is that the Heritage Foundation regularly prepares recommendations for incoming or potentially incoming Republican administrations. That's true. But the nature of Project 2025, on top of efforts by the American Legislative Exchange Council to move discussions of and move action around the calling of a constitutional convention, this is something that we have not seen. I would say to your listeners, don't worry about what other people say about how something is important, unimportant. Look at it yourself. And when you look at Project 2025, there are things that they are talking about, and I'll give you an example of something new, which is the firing of about 30,000 federal workers and replacing them with Trump loyalists. The potential firing of about 400 generals and admirals. The elimination of environmental regulations. A national abortion ban. The elimination of IV, intravenous.
In vitro fertilization, yeah.
In vitro fertilization, right? These are new. This is serious, and so what I'm hearing from that respected individual is very similar to what people said both before Mussolini took over in Italy and Hitler took over in Germany, which is it's not serious. It's not that bad. We will get through it. And that's what I'm hearing. And it's not founded on anything. All it is, I think, frankly, and with all due respect, it's a way of avoiding reality. It's the equivalent of someone basically just saying, as Eddie Murphy did in one of those movies early on, I can't remember whether it was 48 Hours or whether it was Beverly Hills Cop, and he basically says, nah, I can't hear what you're saying. That's the equivalent, right? It's basically blocking out the information and pretending it doesn't exist. This is very dangerous. This is not fear-mongering. This is battle stations.
So let's suppose that, Biden does hold up, that he does, that the Dems back down and he becomes the nominee. He's the presumptive nominee right now. If he's nominated at the convention, what would you do?
You know the story of El Cid? You ever heard that?
I don't remember.
Okay, so El Cid, back in the 12th century, when the Christians were fighting the Moors in Spain, El Cid was this great military leader. And there was a battle between the Christians and the Moors, and El Cid, who had, people were respecting him and everything, he gets killed, but none of the soldiers know it. And so his aides lift him up on the horse, and they put him out there to rally the troops. They put his body out there to rally the troops. My attitude is, if we have to put El Cid on a horse in order to defeat Trump, that's what we do, right? At the moment that the discussion ends, we have to lockstep in opposition to Trump because of what's at stake. And the thing about it is, this is not about electing, or in this case, re-electing, one of us. This is not someone that I am in political alignment with. If there was a better candidate who actually had a chance of winning, then we could have a very different discussion. But the problem is, you can't make this stuff up. You can't just dream it up. Magical thinking is fine in a certain context, but not in politics. We do not have that other candidate who can defeat both Trump and Biden. We have a solid Trump base. 25% of the electorate are probably fascists. And then you have another 15% of people associated with Trump that, they're right-wing, but they may or may not be fascist, but they're solidly behind Trump. And while that is less than a minority, if we fragment, he wins. That's it.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little about the international prospects and how things change. I don't think people are really. I don't think progressives are really focusing on that. I agree with you that there's been almost no conversation about what happens in Gaza under Trump. I think Jared Kushner's comment about the nice beachside property in Gaza should be a hint. I do think that, that's not the only place. And when we come forward, I'd love to get your thoughts about how our international concerns are impacted under a Trump presidency. Most specifically, Miles and I just got back from Kenya and Tanzania, and everywhere we went, people were asking in the most concerned way if we here in the United States were going to re-elect Donald Trump. I'd love to get your thoughts as someone who, has an area of expertise around, international solidarity, but also a good understanding of the landscape in Africa, what we're looking at under a second Trump presidency. That's next on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Thea Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Securing your firearms protects lives. Pick up your free gun safety lock at select LA County libraries and hospitals. Learn more about other gun safety measures you can take to keep our families and communities safe. Visit lacountygunsafety.org or call 1-833-540-0473 for more resources on gun safety. Together, we can save lives.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Finding a path to a meaningful career, one where you're making an impact and making enough money, it can be tough. There's one path, though, that many young adults are landing on that leads them to careers where they can work outdoors, protect our environment, take on climate change, and get paid while they train. It's the California Conservation Corps. You just have to be 18 through 25 years old to enroll, or a U.S. military veteran through age 29, and you have to be a California resident. That's it. There's no education requirement, no employment history needed. Some Corps members need to finish up high school. Others are college grads. But during their 1 year of service, all CCC Corps members can earn the work experience and certifications needed to become a wildland firefighter, forestry technician, install solar, or build trails in our state parks. Learn how you can enroll at ccc.ca.gov. Do this for you. Become the person you want to be through the California Conservation Corps.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Talking with Bill Fletcher Jr. Before I forget, do you want to tell people how to follow you and read your writings and such?
Sure, thank you. My website is billfletcherjr.com. I'm also on Twitter at Bill Fletcher Jr. and Facebook Bill Fletcher Jr. And I look forward to hearing from people. I get out there and I'm regularly on the speaker circuit, and I look forward to hearing from folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question before news, traffic, and sports has to do with, what are we looking at in terms of impacts, especially to those so-called ish-hole countries that the former president, attacked while he was in that job. What are some of the key, we'd need another couple hours, but what are some of the key differences that you think we'd see?
Well, briefly, in the Republican platform, there's nothing about Africa. And I think there's very little about the global South. It's important that even when you do have these so-called black folks who are Republicans and showing up at their convention, this does not mean anything more than what we saw in apartheid South Africa, where there would be black people who would be brought out on stage by the apartheid government to demonstrate the alleged legitimacy of the apartheid program. That's what we're looking at. None of these black folks that are associated with the Republican Party at the national or local level are advocates for black freedom or advocates for people in the global South. And so, for instance, the failure of the Republicans to talk about Africa and to talk about what a Trump candidacy would mean, it would seem to me that someone like Senator Tim Scott should be absolutely outraged and should be making that clear. But what is he doing? Nodding his head and smiling, right? And so I think we have to understand they don't give a damn about us. And even when they drag out, a black face or a Latino or South Asian, it's all for optics. It has nothing to do with the content that people should really be, that many of us are really concerned about.
Yeah, well, it's a great point. Joe Biden calls himself the labor president.
Yes.
What's your response to that?
He's probably the most pro-worker president domestically that we've had, at least since Lyndon Johnson, if not Franklin Roosevelt. And it's been very interesting, and the interesting contrast with Barack Obama, who was much more equivocating on the question of workers, which is part of the problem or part of why we're in the problem that we are politically right now. Biden has been outspoken in support of the rights of workers, the rights of unions. He made appointments to the National Labor Relations Board and the Federal Labor Relations Authority that are pro-worker and pro-union. It's very different. Now, with the entrance of J.D. Vance on the Republican ticket, now we're going to see some interesting magic shows. Because what Vance does, no, really, I'm just being real, right? It's like what J.D. Vance does is he plays around with his background coming up as this poor white guy and allegedly speaking for blue-collar workers, but he's not someone who's pro-union. He's not someone there that has been out there on the picket lines, supporting workers in the right to organize, the right to strike. I think he showed up at one picket line. But what he's doing is using populist rhetoric and trying to confuse people about what's actually going on. And so you have one person, one administration that is demonstrably pro-worker. The passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, for instance, that brought with it a humongous number of jobs, which, by the way, the Project 2025 wants to eliminate, and opportunities many of them still untapped. But we're talking about millions of dollars that are available for states, for counties, municipalities, and for community-based organizations to address the environment. These are things that came as a result of pressure on this administration. Not perfect, but it's important, and it's completely different from what the other side is advocating.
Yeah, this is one of the things, and I know it's not the path we were going down, but this is the environment we're in today. Fletcher Jr. is that, so many black people that I talk to, people in our community that say both parties are the same. And I can't get my head around that. I get that they're both corporate. I get that they're both, mainstream America, but you have one, top of the ticket saying that police should have complete immunity. You know what I mean? Complete immunity. That for black people, to me, that should be a loud siren.
It should be, and the comment that there's no difference at this point is actually lazy thinking. And I know some of your listeners will be really ticked off that I said that. But it's lazy thinking. It's not looking at the actual situation. If you mean they're both the same, as you mentioned, in that they're both dominated by capitalists, then yes, they are both the same. But that was true in if you want to talk about the Civil War. I mean, the Democratic Party of the time, which would have been the Republican Party of today, and the Republican Party of the time were parties that were dominated by capitalists. To say that there was no difference defies history in terms of the facts on the ground. Is there anything, for instance, if you look at Project 2025, that's similar on the Democratic Party platform, right? And you can go down the list. What about climate change? I mean, the planet is burning, and everyone knows it. What are the Republicans saying about it? And so in some ways, as someone recently wrote, this election is about choosing who it is that we should struggle with, where we have the best opportunities of winning. That's the way I look at it. And so when people say that there's no difference, as you just pointed out very clearly, no, there are very dramatic differences in the impact on regular people's lives. Think about how Trump addressed the pandemic. And then think about what happened afterwards. Think about how the economy collapsed in 2020. It collapsed. I mean, when people talk about inflation, of course, and part of that is that globally the economy collapsed. And yet we haven't gone, it was rebuilt and we haven't gone into a recession. What would Trump have done?
Yeah.
I mean, so, those are some of the things that I think need to be posed anytime someone says, well, there's no difference. All right, let's be clear. Let's look at these court appointments. This judge in Texas that just dismissed the charges, would she have been appointed if Trump hadn't been the president?
And the answer is no. We're going to have to leave it there. Bill Fletcher Jr., I hope you'll join me again sometime soon.
It would be a pleasure. Anytime calling me.
Absolutely. We continue our conversation when we come forward. Dr. James Lance Taylor joins us. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is going to be Donald Trump's running mate after getting the vice president nomination. The delegation formally nominated him yesterday on the opening day of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A jubilant Vance pumped his fist in the air when it became official. In Illinois, Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling is all in on the security plan for next month's Democratic National Convention following the recent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. The African-American top cop added that the police department has been preparing for the DNC since they found out Chicago would be the host city, and they are counting for all incidents that could happen. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BIN News.
You could save money. Good to know. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
This is the